of recovery in the economy.
Okay, so Aditya Prakash, it's a question from you as you are Deputy Commissioner GOI. So there is a question that how will the coronavirus affect the global economic situation in long term, and in India term, how it is affecting? It is said that when we are offering our corona vaccine to these to these such type of countries, we're making an effect globally. We are making a strong effect. Do you agree with it?
Yeah. So first of all, thank you so much for inviting me to this gathering, letting me speak. Thank you, Sapna. Thank you, Shri Ram College of Commerce. Thank you, Commerce Society. Thank you. And I would also like to welcome Akansha and Sujit sir and everyone who is here. So I come from a medical background. I did my MBBS and then I came into taxation. Right now I work as Deputy Commissioner of Income Tax. So I got two kind of stories to narrate here, two kind of stories to tell here. The first one is about the pandemic that we faced. So when we were suddenly hit by the pandemic, so the world economy was hit very badly, and it was affected because we are, very closely connected. If a component of a machine is made in, I would say China, the engineer who is working and sitting in Bangalore, and the software which is made somewhere in California. So all these things are connected just because we are a global economy, and this structure was affected very badly. All the communication was cut. People were not able to go out. People were not able to work. So at that time, what we decided was that this thing is very good, but such situations can come anytime. So what we should aim for is Atmanirbhar Bharat. This is what Prime Minister Modi started at the time of Corona and pandemic. This is what we strive for. So at that time, we started with that we should have our local manufacturing. We should have our local supply of especially APIs. If you remember when the pandemic has just started, we were not able to produce paracetamol. This is a very, like over-the-counter medicine which you take for fever. So it was really scarce in quantity. We're not able to supply even minimum quantities of it. And the thing was that we are the global manufacturing hub of pharmacy, but still we're not able to do it because the key component, the API for paracetamol, was coming from China. So this aspect we also have to address, and this is for the first time we have addressed such an issue. So I would say that global economy has seen such kind of crisis for the first time. It's a new thing for all of us. We've learned a new lesson. And like you talked about the global vaccine initiative that has been started by India, I would say it's a wonderful, wonderful initiative. Even no matter where do you go outside India, India is always considered a soft power. And when I talk about soft power, people talk about yoga, right? People talk about Bollywood. People talk about our cuisines, our chai. This is what people talk about. And this is something new to that list we are adding now, that people will be talking about how India is going beyond the boundaries and helping the world. So I think it is going to go a long way in making our relationships better with other countries and also make things, make India sort of a global power, soft global power.
So you are saying that now India will be recognized by COVID vaccine also in this pandemic. India is
Yes.
helping other countries rather than that chai. So Surjit
Yes.
ji, I'll come to you because I was watching you with the whole conversation. You were very smiling, and my question for you is related to Atmanirbhar because you are closely watching the work of government as. You have listened to Aditya ji and to Akansha ji. They both are saying that yes, government is doing good work. Let's see that COVID vaccine we are giving to our neighbor country, will it make us globally powerful?
Yeah. First of all, let me express my happiness to be part of this group at SRCC, and also express my colleagues also are out there. So grateful to the Commerce Society for this. So when we come to the steady or stable economy point of view, yeah, India is in the process of readying itself to be a steady or stable economy. So see the macroeconomic fundamentals of the economy, if you see in the case of demand growth, inflation, or fiscal deficit or fiscal deficit, monetary policy, and all those stuff, international trade point of view, even the fiscal deficit is a little bit higher compared to the previous years, mainly due to the pandemic. We had to government spending, we had to increase like anything. So yeah, India is in the process of readying itself to a stable, steady or stable economy. But see, when we see from the macroeconomic point of view or financial stability angle point of view, whatever I agree to what Akansha had mentioned about this macroeconomic fundamentals. So in addition to that, actually, so there are so many international commitments for us, in the Financial Stability Board. Actually, we have to adhere to the requirements and standards laid down by the Financial Stability Board, where there is a ranking based for all the countries, G20 countries, based on their performance. And G20 countries contribute about 90% of the global world product. So this type of a financial stability board was established around 2010 after the global financial crisis. So there is already some sort of a ranking is taking place every year. What I would like to stress upon the fact is that there is already a ranking taking place every year, and that report is submitted to G20. There are standards we have to follow. So India being a democratic country, maybe we may not be able to satisfy all the requirements and standards. So let me tell you an example. See, Basel III norms. Okay, Basel III norms is something required for the banking sector. So Basel III norms means that there are certain capital requirements which is required for the banks and all those stuff. So what happens is that, okay, ordinary customer, if he goes to the bank to have some loan or something like that, or home loan or a personal loan, he has to satisfy so many requirements. Okay, so this following the international standards may have a negative effect in the other sense, in a developing country like a democratic country like India, where we have to satisfy the requirements of the poor. We had to satisfy the requirements of MSME sector. We had to satisfy the requirements of the farmers. So see, we have to, at this one point of time itself, we have to follow international standards. At the other point of view, we have to take care of the population. So see, even though globally international standards set by the standard setting bodies, we are almost othering. We are around 80-70% othering through the standards. So we are almost a steady economy. We cannot tell that we are 100% steady economy. We are in the process of development. So see, India is somewhere mid between that, mainly because we have to, what I would like to emphasize is that we have to satisfy the requirements of the huge population. So that acceptance of full standards set up by the international standard setting bodies may have an adverse effect on that. I do not 100% tell that it may have an adverse, to a certain extent it may have an adverse effect. So this is something I like to tell upon the steadiness or.
So Surjit, you are saying that yes, we are making the policies, but we cannot satisfy the whole country to each and every person, right?
Yeah.
So I'll come to you now. I will go to Akansha ji. Akansha, do you agree with Surjit ji? First question, and second is that can the world economy bank upon India for growth?
Before I go to your answer, Aditya sir, if you don't mind, I'd just like to add one thing to what you said. If you see in economics terms, globalization is a word I'm sure all the students, everybody is aware of. But it was realized when COVID pandemic had struck all the economies that we had focused a lot on economic globalization, whereas non-economic globalization is something that had not been focused upon that much. What do I mean by non-economic globalization? That's exactly what Aditya sir was talking about. It's about the soft power. It's about interacting on things other than trade. It's about more than exports and imports, either of goods and services or even people. So non-economic globalization, this was a perfect example where a health pandemic did affect almost all the world, maybe once in a century kind of crisis. None of us, or probably even 2-3 generations before us, had seen anything like it. So this was a time where it was realized that non-economic globalization is really, really important. When this pandemic started, March, April, various scholars like Danny Roderick and all started writing and talking about it, that this is the time you need to understand that this is equally important as economic globalization and start focusing on it. And India did in fact take lead on it. If you remember, in the very beginning of COVID pandemic, India, along with the other South Asian countries, did announce a fund where, India and some other South Asian countries had contributed to a fund, for vaccine, for finding a vaccine for COVID. So that is the kind of response that we are talking about. We are very proactive. We were very focused on coming out of this together. And I think that is one very big lesson that comes out of it, is that you need to focus on non-economic aspects of globalization. In situations like this is over only when it is over for all the countries. I mean, it cannot be like in pieces like that. So I think that is where India did come in. And like you're saying, it is very much related to your second question, like, can the world depend on India for growth? If you see, almost all international agencies like IMF, OECD, or even all the private sector agencies do forecast India to become the fastest growing economy in the next year, in the next financial year. Almost all of them are projecting India to be, having a double digit growth. Now, some people may say that some of it is base effect. Yes, but even going forward for the next couple of years, they see a lot of potential, a lot of steady and robust recovery ahead for us. Also remember, when the government tried to, give a response to COVID this year, it just did not try and cushion the impact of COVID, but did undertake a lot of structural reforms in the economy. A lot of supply side measures were taken, like labor reforms, like Atmanirbhar Bharat, or PLI scheme, and various others. And all of these are structural reforms that obviously take some time to, show results on ground, but do have a huge potential for pushing growth in the economy. And government has been taking a lot of measures to promote private sector activity as well, whether it's infrastructure or investment promotion activities. So I think there are reasons to be very hopeful of the growth picking up in the coming few years, and India being going back to the fastest growing economy and like a high growth center of the world.
So Akansha is saying that in future years, yes, India will become a fastest growing economy. We all are wishing it, just that India should become it. Aditya ji, I'll come to you. You should answer the question of Akansha, what she was saying. I want the argument of yours, but I also have a question that, do you think that, yes, it's a time that India or any other country should think about it, that your GDP's percent should be highly given to the health sector? Because being a journalist, I have seen it in these small towns, in the cities, that still also जो कंडीशन है आज भी जिला अस्पतालों की, मैं एक बहुत साझी भाषा में बोलूं, सुरजीत जी भी हमारे साथ है, आकांक्षा भी हमारे साथ है, आप जानते भी होंगे, मैंने ये तस्वीर देखी है कि जिला अस्पतालों की स्थिति आज भी बदहाल है। आज भी ऐसी यूनिवर्सिटीज की, ऐसे कॉलेजेस की जो मेडिकल कॉलेजेस हैं, वहां पर प्रॉपर व्यवस्था नहीं है। और कोविड एरा में हमने ये महसूस किया कि हम अपने डॉक्टर्स पर, हम अपने पैरामेडिकल स्टाफ पर बहुत ज्यादा खर्च नहीं करते थे। अचानक ये पेंडेमिक आता है, तब हमें समझ आता है कि यस, वी शुड गिव सम पार्ट टू ऑफ आवर जीडीपी टू द हेल्थ सेक्टर आल्सो।
Sorry, my mic was muted. Sapna, first I'll come to the question, the role of India. So, what is different about India? Like, we are not the biggest economy in the world, but still India has to play the biggest role in, if the world has to come out of this crisis, this economic crisis, as well as this pandemic. And the simple reason for that is our demography. We are the youngest nation right now. The advantage we have right now is that we can give world number of doctors they want. We can, create as many vaccines as the world would need. So this is, and also we have the demand because of the large population we have. Whenever some, big MNC starts negotiating, starts something new project, the first thing they think is that how we are going to implement this thing in India. When Netflix started, like when Disney Plus started their streaming service, so first thing they discussed was like our biggest market is going to be India. So how to target that market? So no matter what situation the world goes into, whether it's a pandemic or not, whether it's a crisis situation or not, but India will always be important. And the simple reason is that we are the largest demography. We are the largest democracy. Also, we are the largest demography right now and the youngest population. So India will always have the biggest role to play if the world has to come out of this crisis. The second question, like, okay, I can tell this from the first person perspective because I'm a doctor and I've served for 2 years in a government setup. So I have seen this from very, I would say, very close quarters, and the problem lies from both the ends of the spectrum. So I have seen PHC, CSC, जो जिला अस्पताल जो होते हैं, I've seen, and there are no doctors working, and there are vacancies. I'll talk about Haryana because I come from Haryana. I'll talk about Haryana. Like, so in my district, there are 20 vacancies, and no doctor is willing to come and work for the government. The simple reason is the private sector is more lucrative. So you cannot just force them to come and work for the government sector. So government is ready to spend, they're ready to pay the salaries they want, but the kind of freedom the private sector provides, the kind of freedom, the kind of, perks they will be having when they're working for the private sector are much more. So this is a question of ethics also. This is a question of policy also. This is a question of how a society looks at doctors. So if we keep saying this, like, when I talk to my doctor friends and I ask them, why don't you go to government services? Because everyone says doctor is a noble profession. If you're a doctor, you're serving the society. Then that person says, if I spent 6 to 7 years of my life working hard, studying hard, why should not I live a very lavish life? I should be working in Delhi. I will be working in Faridabad, Noida, Gurgaon, Mumbai. Why should I go to some CHC, PHC? छोटे से किसी गांव में जाके मैं क्यों काम करूं? So this needs a very large debate, very big discussion, that how do we push and, like, how do we take the doctors from cities to villages, or make infrastructure in the villages that good that, there is no difference between villages and cities, and doctors are ready to work there. But this also, like, if you talk about the public health infrastructure, I would still say that the public health infrastructure in India is much, much, much better when you compare it to Western nations like USA. If you get a very small, I will tell you a very, example from one of my friends. So we were in USA last year, and a friend fainted. So he is a US citizen. He fainted, and then he was, like, we were going to take him to a hospital, and then he came to his senses. He said, oh, no, I don't want to go to the doctor. I asked him why, because he said he'll charge me around 10,000 USD for this very small thing, and I'm fine on my own. So if you look at the cost, if you look at the setup, then India is doing better than. I know the quality is not that good, but still we are better than.
Right. You are really right, because that's the only reason India is known as the hub for medical students. People from other countries come to here to study the medical. So, Gigi, I'll come to you.
Medical tourism.
Yeah. So, Gigi, I will come to you. My question is, after COVID, what are the possibilities to India become a manufacturing hub? Regarding to Atmanirbhar Bharat also, the biggest yojana, the biggest elan of Modi government.
Yeah, this Atmanirbhar Bharat is something I believe that this will take our country to the next level. So this is what which is adopted one of the largest economy in the world. From around 1980s, they have adopted that, and they were successful in that particular thing. Because see, in India there is huge population, so there is huge market is there. And we have the population, means human resources there, very cheap human resources there. We have the technical capabilities are there. And see, I will explain this with an example. Apple phone, actually, it is a US company. So majority of the it has so many components in it, the small units in that, which is manufactured around 50% in China and some other East Asian economies. So see, now they are shifting the firms from China to other countries, and this one of the, I forgot the name of the country. So India is one. India, in addition to another country, is considered as one of the best place for this manufacturing of this small components of this huge Apple product. Okay. So this type of opportunities, so value addition, so much value addition we can do, and this value addition will strengthen the manufacturing, create employment opportunities, which is now a little bit lacking for us. So this Atmanirbhar Bharat means we are just becoming self-sufficient, even though we were following that policy, not up to that level recently, but now we have become full-fledged, even the defense requirements or any other aspects, if you consider, we are just using our own technology, our own resource and our own, and we are inviting the foreign companies to invest in India. We are relaxed FDI norms and all those stuff we have done. So definitely this will create demand for demand supply. Demand also it will create. In addition, it will create employment opportunities. It will create growth. So this is something I believe that this Atmanirbhar Bharat is something which can take our country to the next level.
Sujit ji was saying that now India will become a manufacturing hub because after this COVID era, the manufacturing companies, the industries will shift to India. But the recent reports and some of the experts have said that you have to make the paper policy very liberal. Then only any company is interested in India. When the company is coming to India and it has a lot of paperwork, they used to think like, wo phas gaye usme. They are just stuck in it. They will say, "No, we are okay here. You have to liberal the paperwork. You have to liberal the tax work. That's all the things." Will the government do it or any other way for that?
Yeah, what you have said is right. See, international comparisons, if you see the international rankings, India ranks better in case of regulatory standards and compliance with processes, but the effectiveness of regulations get impacted due to undue delays and rent seeking and complex regulation and quality of regulation. All those aspects are there. The World Bank Regulatory Quality Index also shows that, see, it is much, it is not up to that mark compared to UK, USA, Singapore, Japan, and other countries. So, so this need to be, so recently, so let me, what the government can have done recently for in these type of aspects. See, Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India, actually IBBI, for resolution of the non-financial firms was set up. I think 2016 it was set up. So it resulted in our ease of doing business ranking. It substantially improved from 140th position to around 60-70 position. It is mainly due to the adoption of this Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board or IBC. So, so government is taking some reforms to reduce the complexities. Recently, what they have done is that we have reduced, banned so many laws, and means that there are multiple laws, complex laws, and it has been made simplified. If you see the budget announcement over the last 3 to 5 years, you can see that it is somewhat focused on simplification of regulations, simplification of processes. So this is evident everywhere. In any of the state, if you see, it is happening gradually. It is happening, but last 2-3 years, it has kept a pace to a great extent. So yes, actually, I agree with you that so many formalities and processes are involved in this, but we have done so many measures. So something which is going to happen in the future is insolvency process for financial institutions, because if some banks face a crisis or something like that, there should be a process for resolution of that bank or financial institution. We have already IBBA, which is for non-financial firms. So these all laws are for the taking India to the next level. So government had already implemented measures for simplification. That is what I have to comment on this.
Okay, okay. Kanchi, I'll come to you. I have two questions for you regarding to bank also, and regarding to privatization, and regarding to our agriculture sector. In pandemic, there was only the agriculture sector which had supported the GDP. It was said by the experts also. You have also read the articles. How you are watching the agriculture sector after this COVID era, after this pandemic? Second question regarding to privatization, that today people are saying that government is doing working on more on privatization, either it is in railway or it is in any of the sector. Do you think that it is okay that India will go to a steady economy with the privatization also?
So I'll take your second question first regarding the privatization. So see, for every to so okay, let's just think about this. Think about it in this way. For any sector or any activity that you're doing, you need to create some balance into it, right? So, as basic principles of economics, you should be the government or anybody needs to be in the business of doing the things it does better, and and probably the private sector needs to be involved in things that it can probably do better, or in some cases there needs to be a mix. So it's not that government is trying to entirely privatize certain things, but there are certain commercial aspects which have been thought of, which have been well researched about, and where it is believed that the private sector can give a lot of momentum. Those are the sections where there's some kind of efforts to either do some disinvestment or privatize certain entities or public sector entities. So that's like a mixed strategic, that is why we call it strategic disinvestment, or basically this is kind of policy that is being followed depending on where what is thought of who will be able to add more value or how this balance can be attained. Regarding your question on agriculture, you're absolutely right. Agriculture is one sector which did manage to grow at, I think, somewhere between 3 to 4%. I think it's about 3.4 or something, if I remember the number correctly. Even in this contraction year. So if you go back to March 2020, exactly 1 year before we are right now, when that national lockdown was announced, I think it's almost exactly a year after that, few days later than that. So since there was a complete restriction on movement of people, and there were serious, like it was one of the most stringent lockdowns announced. There were very stringent restrictions on movement of people and activity. However, very soon it was realized that there was a harvesting and sowing cycle that was going on. So if you go back and see government's decision on those early days of lockdown, agriculture sector was exempt from that. There were provisions made where by following still appropriate norms and everything, harvesting and sowing could happen on time. So that proactive decision on allowing that did help maintain that cycle of sowing and harvesting so that it is not disturbed. That's also what has helped. So you see food grains production has remained like really good, and agriculture sector did manage to remain a very bright spot in the last year. However, you need to notice that, so if you see the quarterly data that comes from your Ministry of Statistics, now other sectors have also started to improve. Like I said in the very beginning, yes, agriculture sector has been the bright spot for almost the whole year, a whole financial year that has gone by. But we have a concept called core GDP, right? So core GDP is something where you exclude, first of all, agriculture, and secondly, government spending from your GDP calculations. Now you see that the contraction in that is also reducing. So you see that other sectors are also starting to see some revival and supporting the economy. However, you're right, agriculture has remained like the bright spot and supported the economy very well in the last financial year that that's just about to end in a few days.
Aditi ji, I'll come to you. During this COVID era, during this pandemic, it was said that there should be liquidity more with any of the person. Zyada se zyada cash hona chahiye. But before that, our government was saying that we should move to digital economy. We should move to cashless economy. Do you think that right now we are in the phase to become a cashless economy?
I think, Sapna, having cash with you and having liquidity are totally different things. So liquidity means कि मेरे पास खर्च करने के लिए पैसा होना चाहिए, whether it's in my card, my Paytm wallet, or at my home.
सवाल, हाँ, एक जनरल, आपने सही कहा, एक जनरल सा सवाल मेरा ये है कि ये कहा गया कि कैश ज्यादा से ज्यादा होना चाहिए या आपके पास ऐसा एसेट होना चाहिए ड्यूरिंग दिस पेंडेमिक एरा, बहुत सारे एक्सपर्ट्स ने कहा। तो आप ये मानते हैं कि क्या कैश ज्यादा होना चाहिए या फिर अभी हम कैशलेस इकोनॉमी की तरफ बढ़ने के लिए तैयार हैं या नहीं है?
No, right. So when you, this is more about your personal financial planning कि जब आप अपना पैसा कहीं भी इन्वेस्ट करते हैं, so it should be balanced कि उसमें से कुछ पोर्शन आप अपना ऐसे चीजों में इन्वेस्ट करें, those are very liquid. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, अगर आपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स में पैसा इन्वेस्ट किया है, या मैं कहूँ आपने लैंड में अपना सारा का सारा पैसा डाल दिया, इफ यू परचेज गोल्ड विद दैट, तो यू टू सी कि लिक्विडिटी किसकी सबसे ज्यादा है। इफ आई एम नीडिंग, मुझे आज सुबह सुबह एकदम से पैसे की जरूरत पड़ गई, तो मैं कहाँ से पैसे निकाल सकता हूँ? अगर मैं लैंड बेचने जाऊंगा, इट विल टेक, आई विल से 30 days। अगर मैं गोल्ड बेचने जाऊंगा, हो सकता है मुझे 1-2 दिन मिल लग जाए, या हो सकता है मुझे 1-2 घंटे में भी मिल सकता है। म्यूचुअल फंड में मेरा जो पैसा है, जो मैंने इन्वेस्ट कर रखा है, उसको मैं विद इन फ्यू आवर्स, फ्यू डेज निकाल सकता हूँ। सो इट इज अबाउट हाउ लिक्विड योर फंड्स आर, और so this is more, whether it's a pandemic or not, whether you are going through a crisis or not, each one of us must have some sort of liquid funds at all times, because life is very unpredictable. There can road bumps and you won't even be knowing them. There can be medical emergencies, there can be emergencies in family, there can be national emergencies, like there can be global emergencies, and at that time you need that hard solid cash with you to be able to just deal with the day-to-day issues. So you're right, you need cash, you need liquidity, but it should be balanced. And second thing, I would say is like to for the redemption of economy, for like the economy to boom again, to go in the right path again, we need a right amount of demand. And to have the right amount of demand, we need people with cash, we need people with liquidity. If people are not having liquidity, they won't be able to full economy won't be able to survive if people don't have that amount of liquidity with them. So with people having the cash to spend, the economy grows. So this is how the liquidity functions, in my opinion.
Sujit ji, you are smiling again and again on Aditya's conversation. So I want you should give the reaction on it. We are ready for cashless economy. We are ready for digital economy because it's the government's biggest yojana. It's the biggest elan, biggest nara in any of the election.
India is one of the country where fintech is growing like anything, because if you see the global ranking, around 4th position or 3rd position, India is in the 3rd or 4th position. So we have so many apps. Then we are promoting UPI payments. Then this Paytm and all those, Google Pay and all those. So Reserve Bank has been developing this regulatory ambit for all these sectors. Okay, they're customized. They're peer-to-peer lending. Peer-to-peer lending is something which happened through websites, and so even for that also Reserve Bank has developed. So see, in our country, one of the strange fact is that even in rural areas, people are using Paytm and this cashless mode payments. So so that is what I have. Here the most important thing we have to take into account is this the regulatory thing, because it should not affect the stability or steadiness of our economy. So for that, we are ensuring that regulatory means the process for regulating this sector are tight and well within cybersecurity concern. All those aspects we have taken into consideration, and we are just means internationally also, if you see, our regulations are much better in this fintech sector. So this is what I have to tell on this particular issue.
Sapna, if you don't mind, I'd just like to add one line here. So when the thing,
I was coming to you only. I want the final comment because we are going to for the end to this conference. So I want a final comment that what do you think that will be the key factors in making India a steady economy? And what you were saying, you can continue.
Just about the fact that when you said that when this pandemic came, people started saying that you want to have more cash with you. I think that had something to do with the fact, see, whenever there is any uncertainty, people want the precautionary motives to save are very high. You are very uncertain, you don't know what is going to happen, lockdown kaise aage badhega, kitne din chalega, whether your job is secure, whether you will be facing some medical emergency, like Aditya sir was explaining. So, in any uncertain time, the precautionary motives to save are very high. So, I think the things that, you started seeing in the beginning of the pandemic was people were trying to uh, spend less on discretionary items. So, non-essential items like durable items, they were just trying to spend on essential items and trying to, save whatever they could. And you could see that with data in Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana accounts. They are the accounts which are usually those zero balance accounts which were opened in this drive of financial inclusion. You see that the amount that was there in those also picked up. Even RBI came up with the data where it said the financial savings of household sector increased sharply in the first quarter. So at that time, people were trying to save more and not spend. So that is how the concept of that, people wanted to keep liquidity in their hands, be it digital or being in cash form. And you see that gradually improving as some confidence came. People kind of understood this disease better now. They understood how the things unfolded. So you see, a reversal in the trend of increased consumer spending, less precautionary savings, like that. So I think that is what usually basic, even basic economic theory kind of does support this idea. When there is high uncertainty, there is an incentive for people to do more precautionary savings. And coming to your final question of what do I think will drive India's growth, I think so one thing is on COVID account, I think vaccination, more and more vaccination is going to play a very important role in how it goes forward in the coming month. I mean, in the coming few days, coming few months. That's on the medical front. On the economic front, I think also on the economic front, I think the policies that have been undertaken in the last 1 year, they are not trivial. A lot of structural reforms have happened. A lot of them are now being implemented. The rules are being formed, they're being implemented. Labor reforms, OSP regulations, your product link incentive schemes, the detailed rules and everything are all being laid out. Some of them are already or laid out, they'll be functioning very soon, and a lot of them are already functioning. Your BPO sector has been liberalized further. So a lot of structural reforms have happened. I think they pave a way for a very strong fundamental improvement in the economy. Obviously, when these reforms are undertaken, it takes some time, to see the results. But with all of these actually happening on ground, I think we're standing on really strong fundamentals to build on and to grow further.
Yeah. Aditya ji, your final comment, that what you think that will be the key factors for making India a steady economy?
सपना, बीट इंडिया और बीट एनी इकोनॉमी, 4 चीजें होती हैं जो हमेशा बेसिस बनाती हैं: लैंड, लेबर, लॉज एंड लिक्विडिटी. तो लिक्विडिटी की हमने बात की. बिजनेसमैन के पास लिक्विडिटी होनी चाहिए और कंज्यूमर के पास लिक्विडिटी होनी चाहिए. बिजनेसमैन के पास जब लिक्विडिटी होगी, ही विल प्रोड्यूस मोर, और कंज्यूमर के पास जब पैसा होगा वो ज्यादा खरीदेगा, और जब डिमांड एंड सप्लाई मैच करेंगे, इकोनॉमी अपने आप ग्रो करेगी. लैंड की जब मैं बात करता हूं तो बाय लैंड आई मीन लैंड रिफॉर्म्स जो हैं, जो हम ऑलरेडी स्टार्टेड ऑलरेडी, कि जब मैं एक फैक्ट्री बनाने के लिए जाऊं, मुझे लैंड लेने में आसानी हो. ऐसा ना हो कि मैं उस लैंड को एक्वायर करने में मेरे 1 साल लग गया, मैं फैक्ट्री कब बनाऊंगा, काम कब शुरू होगा. तो जो लैंड एक्विजिशन के जो लॉज हैं, दे शुड बी लिबरल. सेकंड बात, लेबर पे जब हम आते हैं तो लेबर दोनों तरफ से, मतलब अगर मुझे एक स्किल लेबर चाहिए तो उसके ट्रेनिंग जो है वो अच्छी होनी चाहिए. मुझे अगर स्किल लेबर मिलेगा तो मैं एक बिजनेसमैन अगर हूं, मैं उसके लिए अच्छी सैलरी, अच्छे इंसेंटिव्स उसको देना पसंद करूंगा. दूसरी बात ये भी है कि जब मेरे लिए हायरिंग और फायरिंग, अगर एक मैं बिजनेसमैन हूं, वो इजी होनी चाहिए. कि मैं अगर किसी को कोई काम नहीं कर रहा है ठीक से, मैं उसे नौकरी से निकालना चाहता हूं, या मैं अच्छे लोगों को हायर करना चाहता हूं, तो इट शुड बी इजी फॉर मी. और लास्ट बात लॉज की है कि जैसे आपने शुरू में भी बात की कि जब मैं एक नया बिजनेस सेटअप, ईज ऑफ बिजनेस जिसे कहेंगे, ईज ऑफ डूइंग बिजनेस जो है कि मैं स्क्रैच से अगर एक बिजनेस शुरू करता हूँ, सिर्फ शुरू करने में कितने दिन लग रहे हैं. इफ आई एम एबल टू स्टार्ट अ बिजनेस फ्रॉम स्क्रैच इन 30 days, इट मींस द लॉज आर लिबरल. इट मींस कि वो लॉज जो हैं वो बिजनेस को बहुत फेवर करते हैं, अच्छे लॉज है. तो हमें इन चारों चीजों का ध्यान देना है. इफ यू वांट टू बी steady economy, a stable economy, and be the economic superpower. Thank you.
Yeah. Sujit ji, your final comment. What you think that will be the key factors for making India a steady economy?
In addition to what both of my colleagues, Mr. Aditya and Ms. Akanshka has mentioned, from the steady point of view, financial steadiness point of view for our economy, I would like to mention about 2011, there was some FSLRC recommendation, you might have heard, it is available on the website of Ministry of Finance. It is a huge report. So this report focused on what can be further improved in the financial sector to take our financial sector to a global level. See, the financial, development index, if you see, this is brought by the IMF. World Bank is also bringing some that financial index thing. IMF is also has brought this financial development index. So in that index, we are nowhere in the 20 because we are either in the 30s or 40s or something like. So for that, for this FSLRC recommendation of 2011, it had given a master plan for the development of the financial sector, taking India to the next level. So few aspects, I would like to mention 2-3 recommendation. One was the Monetary Policy Committee. Okay, Monetary Policy Committee, you might have heard earlier. There is a committee for that, independent committee having representatives from government and this Reserve Bank of India and outside experts, and they are deciding the monetary policy. And we have a target also that 6%. So that is a highest limit we have. So that is one of the reforms we have already implemented. That was one of the recommendation of this FSLRC. Similarly, there is an FDMC, Financial Data Management Center. Okay. See, in our financial system, there are so many regulators. Reserve Bank is there for the banking sector. Then SEBI is there for the security sector. Insurance Regulatory Development Authority is there for the insurance sector. PFRDA is there for the pension sector. Then IBBA, which I have mentioned, for the resolution of non-financial firm. And recently one IFSCA, International Financial Service Centers Authority, was established. It is in Gujarat to make a global financial hub. For that it was established. So this FDMC is something, see, now let us take a company X. Okay, X is a very big corporate. Okay, I am not naming any of the corporate. I am taking that X corporate. It has some influence in banking sector. It has banking business. It has securities business, insurance business, everywhere. Okay. Now the respective regulators, Reserve Bank is monitoring banking sector. Okay, it has nothing to do with securities or some other sector. SEBI is managing security sector. Okay, so they are watertight compartments. So for this, one institutional setup was established long back in 2010, which is a Financial Stability Development Council. I am not going deep into that, but let me tell you about the Financial Data Management Sector. Okay, center. Okay, this center, once established, it will do the systemic risk analysis. Means some sort of a risk happening in anywhere in the economy, like for the financial institutions or something. Based on the data from all these regulators, they will do some analysis and they will tell that, okay, this company X is having some systemic risk, or this bank has some systemic risk, or something like that. So that is something which we are which we are in the process, which is one of the budget announcement. We hope it might get implemented. Then another thing is this bank merger privatization, which you had mentioned in one of the questions. So privatization, see, globally, if you see the banking sector, we do not have any global SIFI. SIFI means systemically important financial institution. Systemically important financial institution means, suppose a particular thing happened to that particular institution, whether it will have an effect on the economy. If it has an effect on the domestic economy, it is called a domestic SIFI. If it has an effect on the global economy, it is known as global SIFI. Okay, at present, even though HDFC, so in our country, there are 3 SIFIs, systemically important financial banks. like HDFC is there, then SBI is there, ICICI is there. Means if something happens to this bank, it will have an effect on the whole economy. Okay, so it has some additional additional regulatory requirements which the Reserve Bank has laid on. So we have to create a global SIFI, systemically important financial institution, which have an effect globally. We have to increase economies of scale. Okay, so that is one aspect of the bank merger or privatization. We have to bring professionalism. Okay, let me tell you. Recently, I had applied for this home loan. Okay, this is within this room only. I am telling home loan. I had applied for I had applied for submitted application to ICICI. I had submitted application to SBI. So what ICICI did is that, okay, sir, you just scan it and then send all the documents within 2-3 days. Okay, they told, okay, this is it. SBI had to go 2-3 times to the bank, then handle. So this is the professionalism is lacking. That is it doesn't require that it need to be privatized, but some sort of a professionalism or compensation should be linked to professionalism. Something has to be brought up. So this is one of the factor. We are just privatizing or bank merger. We have to bring professionalism. It should suit the customers. Okay, whether SBI is satisfying the requirements of the customers, it need to be assessed whether it is doing or not. Whether private banks, okay, private PSBs are doing lending to the rural sector. We cannot deny that. At the same time, it has NPAs also. Non-performing assets are high for the public sector. So if they are lending to rural sector, the NPAs are high. Okay, so the professionalism we have to bring. That is one another thing. Then, so this is what the reforms we have to take to be a stable or steady or a steady economy. Then, an earlier one thing which I had mentioned about the resolution of financial institutions. If some bank goes on crisis, now what we follow is that, okay, government will finance everything, take over the bank, merge it with something. It is wastage of government money. So there should be an institution. Globally, there are institutions in US and all those countries, well-developed countries. So there should be a proper resolution framework. Now the resolution framework is scattered across regulatory laws. So there should be a particular institution doing the resolution process. Hope you're remembering 2 years back, we had brought a financial resolution deposit insurance, FRDI bill. It was came to the discussion in parliament. Okay, there are so many that means so there was a provision of bailout provision. Means if we suppose a bank is going to be resolved, there is a particular provision in that law that if when a bank get resolved, depositors may get affected. That is one of the minor provision. It is at the normal level, it may have not happened. The deposits to certain percentage, the bank cannot ensure. That is one of the provisions. So that was one of the reasons we had taken away that FRDA bill from the parliament. But this FRDA bill, if introduced, it will have a positive effect, wide-ranging effect on the whole economy. So this is one thing which we have to do for the then so we are in the process. I think there are so many budget announcements. There are so many. India being a democratic country, and we have to take this thing slowly. We are implementing. We are having discussions and all those stuff. So hope all these aspects gets implemented, and it will create a level playing field for the whole sector. That's what I think.
Yeah, hope is the biggest word right now for the Indian government also, for India also, and in this conversation also. Hope, yes, India will become a steady economy in the coming years. What the reforms government is making, Atmanirbhar Bharat, the biggest reform, the biggest yojana set by the government. Let's see how it will work. And thank you so much, Sujit ji, for this conversation. Thank you so much, Aditya ji, for this conversation. Thank you, Akansha, for this conversation. A very fruitful conversation, and really, I'm lucky to be in this conversation. बहुत अच्छा लगा इस conversation में आके. श्रीराम कॉलेज के कॉमर्स सोसाइटी ने ये conversation organize किया. For the first time, it was organized, and I really enjoyed it. I get many of the information which I'll use in my conversation when I'm there in my debate. कि हाँ, government कुछ कर रही है. Just wait. The result will be there in the coming years, right? I'm right, Sujit ji? The result will be in the coming years?
Yeah, definitely. Like my colleagues, Aditya, Akansha, they are very hardworking, working hard in the government. So I hope it will.
I'm also hoping, being a journalist, I'm also hoping कि कुछ तो अच्छा होगा और हम लोगों को अच्छा कहने को मिलेगा. हम लोगों को समझाएंगे कि नहीं कुछ अच्छा हो रहा है. आप लोग वेट करिए. गवर्नमेंट बहुत कुछ कर रही है. So I think all the people who are there with us in this conversation, in this meeting, have got their answers. Thank you so much to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Most of the questions that had been asked by the means of the form have been addressed in the conference
Yeah, so
already.
you want to
Yeah.
ask the question? You want to ask the
No,
question?
no. Like I'm asking people, like if they want to ask a question, they can put it in the chat box.
Okay. Just continue.
Yeah.
Continue.
Mhm. So all the questions have been addressed in the conference which you have filled through the forms. So now we'll open the chat box and the audience can send in any sort of questions that they may like to ask.
So any questions, or shall we wind up? So Ishika, can we wind up?
There's a question like how the concept of bad banks will help. Hello.
Can you come again, Priyanshu?
Yeah, 1 second. Just a second. Uh, 1 second. How the concept of bad banks will help. The question is how the concept of bad banks help.
I think, see, first of all, conceptually, bad bank means you're transferring the assets which are distressed so to one particular entity rather than them being scattered around various financial sector players in the economy, right? So a concept, so the debate about bad bank is not new. It has been there from a lot of time, but it has been announced this time that a decision has been taken, that one has been set up. However, not all the details are yet out. They are still in the final process, this thing. But conceptually, a bad bank helps by freeing up the resources to all the financial sector players in the market to do fruitful and productive lending. See, since I'm sure all of you have heard this NPAs thing. So they are all the non-performing assets that are there. They may be lying with different banks, non-banking financial corporations in the economy, and so let's say they're spread out across a lot of banks. So when you're talking about a bad bank, a lot of them are consolidated and are being dealt with by then one entity, and the banks are then have more capital free for productive lending. So that is how conceptually it is there. There is a lot of literature available on how it is useful, and it has been done in other places as well. So and about the details in India, I think they're not yet announced. They're yet in the final stages. So as and when I think that comes out, it will be announced.
I think bad bank is like section C of your school, like जो बच्चों के मार्क्स कम आए हैं सबको निकाल के एक सेक्शन में डाल देते हैं और वहां पे जो सबसे ज्यादा डंडे मारने वाला टीचर है उसको लगाएंगे कि इनके नंबर कुछ ठीक आने लगे. So I think this is how bad bank is going to work. ये सारे एसेट्स पैसे ही देते नहीं है, ये लोग चुका नहीं रहे हैं. इन सब के एसेट्स को एक जगह हम डाल देते हैं. लेट्स सी हाउ इट गोस. It's an oversimplification of things, but if you want to remember it now, this is how you can remember it.
Okay. Yanshmi, any other question?
Now we would like to thank our speakers for such an enlightening conference on the topic, Is India Financially Ready to be a Steady Economy? And sparing some time for interacting with all of us. It was an honor to have with us such great personalities who consume themselves for lightening the society. The Commerce Society feels privileged to have hosted all of you today. Thank you so much. Also, we would like to thank Ms. Sapna Shukla for joining us today and for adding to the glory of the event by her astonishing skills. Also, thank you everyone for cooperating and attending the whole session. We hope that it was worth your time. Stay tuned for the details of our next session.
Thank you so much. I like to give a special thanks because I have taught in SRCC for a year before I joined Indian Economic Service. So this was like going back. It felt really nice to be invited back to SRCC to speak to the students. So thank you for giving me this chance to come back and to interact with you all.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for inviting. And SRCC is one of the prestigious institution in our country, Delhi universities, and this thing. So I graduated from Kerala University. At that time, I was not aware of all this stuff. So being part of this is something I consider as a privilege to participate in this function, having interaction with students and my colleagues. So, and with Ms. Sapna also for anchoring the whole section. And once again, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for giving me this chance to come from the studio, come out from the studio and just join with these such students and with such experts, such beautiful experts, having a beautiful conversation so that I can get the facts, which I can tell to my viewers also. Yes, India is becoming a steady economy. Yes, India government is doing well.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye. Have a good day.